So, today we are going to talk a little bit about whether or not you should still apply to law school this cycle. Is it too late? Can you still make a good application? Should you just wait till next cycle? For those of you who are new, my name is Sydney Montgomery, and I am the executive director and founder here at Barrier Breakers, where we specialize in providing high touch admissions advising to students applying to law school. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about whether you should still be applying this cycle. So, we're going to cover a couple of things. We're going to talk a little bit about application timing. We're going to talk about some questions you should be asking yourself if you are actually ready to apply to law school this cycle, and what to do if maybe the answer is that you should wait. So, first and foremost, if you are just kind of still figuring out how law school applications work, you might not fully understand rolling admission timeline. So, I want to talk to you a little bit about that. So, with rolling admissions, basically, it means that for most law schools, not every law school, but for most law schools, they give out acceptances kind of on a rolling basis as they receive applications. Now, law school admissions is a holistic and comparative application process. So, what does that mean? It means that it's not necessarily like you're going to get a decision in the order in which you submit your application, because it's holistic and comparative. And so you might submit your application in September or October, and they might not be 100% sure. They might want to see what the rest of the application pool looks like. And so you might not get your application decision until March, even though you applied in September, October. But it also might mean you apply in September, October, and you also find out in October, November, right? Like either of those options are perfectly valid in this kind of rolling application process. But the thing to also note is that for many schools, again, not all schools, but for many schools, there is a distinct admissions and scholarship advantage to applying earlier in the cycle. Now, we generally consider earlier in the cycle to be anything before Thanksgiving, which is, coming up, right? We're basically at that point at the end of what people traditionally consider early in the law school application cycle. And then, a lot of people think that we go from early to late, like I'm either early or I'm late, but there's actually this little on time situation, right? There's average, regular, I don't know, depending on whatever word makes you feel better about it. But I would say regular would be between Thanksgiving and the end of the year. And for some schools, again, this is very school specific, but for some schools, it's between Thanksgiving and maybe mid January. And then I would say we're late in the cycle. Applying January for some schools is later in the cycle. For some schools, it's kind of on time. It again really depends. It also depends on you. Are you an above median candidate? Are you a below median candidate? Because that can have a lot of impact on how we're defining on time, regular versus late. But traditionally, anything like late January, February, March, after that, all late in the cycle. Does it mean you're necessarily not going to get in? No. Are you giving yourself the best chance of getting in? No, you're not. Can you still get in? Sure, you can. But I can do a lot of things potentially. Is it likely? Am I giving myself my best option, not just for acceptance, but for scholarship money if I apply in February and March? No, you're not. And so this is really also a question of risk tolerance and a question of how you want to start your legal career. So, the thing that I always tell students, and if you guys have been with me for a while, you know this, I say we don't make long-term decisions based on short-term emotion. And so this is where that question of should I apply to law school right now or should I wait comes in. Because if you are rushing the application process, listen, look at your heart, ask yourself, am I rushing? Am I putting together sloppy essays that I haven't had time to get reviewed? Am I applying with an LSAT score that is not representative of who I am because I just need to apply right now and don't have time to take it again? Potentially costing myself tens of thousands, potentially over $100,000 more in law school debt because I just don't feel like waiting one more year. It's a hard question. I can't answer that question for you. but you need to ask yourself that question. Are you rushing the application process? So I've talked to a lot of students. Barrier Breakers was on the road this fall. I have not done as much traveling this year ever. This is the most I've ever done. I mean, we were in many states. And if I got to meet you, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I have lots of pictures. I probably owe lots of people pictures via email. I actually told people to email me so I can send them the pictures. And then like some of them didn't. So I just like have these pictures and I'm like, I want to send them to you. But it was really great meeting so many of you on the road. But the thing that I also heard from so many of you is that so many of you are not ready to apply, right? And so there are so many ways in which I can see where having a little bit of a longer time to do the law school application process would make a big difference. And like, this is one of those things that like, I'm going to get on a little soapbox here. I think that the law school application process is stressful in a lot of ways, but I also think some of that stress is like self-made stress, right? There are a lot of systemic barriers and financial barriers and academic barriers to law school. That is why we here at Barrier Breakers are in the, business of breaking down barriers. But there are also man-made, self-imposed issues. And so like part of me is like, what if everyone just looked at the law school application process as a 2-year process? Hot take, unpopular opinion, I know. But like, what if you, like for some of you, you're like, your law school application process has been 6 months. Like you decided you wanted to go and then you were like, and I'm going to get my applications and my LSAT score and my essays and it's all going to get done in 6 months. And that just sounds super stressful. Like, let me break down and do an analogy. You guys know I love analogies. Let's take a wedding. Weddings are on my mind lately. I don't have any news. I'm just saying weddings are on my mind. I feel like everyone got like really excited. It's like, no, not yet. But, you can plan a wedding in 6 months or you can plan a wedding in 2 years. And I don't know if you guys have friends. I have some of these friends. I'm not gonna call my friends out. Like, I have some friends and they get engaged and I'm like, oh my God, congratulations. And like, let's say it's February and I'm like, oh my God, congratulations. When's the wedding? And they're like, August. And I'm like, of this year? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, 6 months from now? And they're like, yeah, we just need to get married. And I'm like, yeah, y'all got a venue? How you gonna get all that done in 6 months? You gonna get it all done in 6 months? And they're like, yeah, it'll be fine. Well, and God bless them. They do it, right? And like, listen, I love all my friends. I love all their weddings. But if we're gonna keep it 100 here, sometimes you can tell a wedding has been planned in 6 months. Yeah. Y'all know, I don't need to say more than that, right? Like sometimes you can be like, they probably could have used an extra 3 to 6 months and then maybe we wouldn't have had this problem, right? And it's fine, right? Like everyone's happy with their wedding. But like sometimes it's rushed and it's like not as good as it could be because they rushed it, right? Listen, if this is you, if you planned your wedding in 6 months, like I'm sure it was beautiful. This is not about you. This is about someone else that planned their wedding in 6 months, but not you. Yours was perfect. Theirs, maybe not. Yours, super perfect. Right? But then you could take that same wedding, and sometimes you have friends and they had a long engagement, right? And I feel like society really does not value long engagements anymore, but they had a long engagement, 2 years, but then everything was like lit, right? Like their engagement party, they had time to have an engagement party, and money, because that's extra money. And they had these photos and they had the bridal shower and the bachelorette and all these things, right? And like every little thing, like, the save the dates came out when the save the dates were supposed to come out, and the invitations came out when the invitations were supposed to come out, with enough time for the RSVP, and you had like a room block that made sense, and you had enough time as the guest because you had notice to buy flights, at a good price, and you could get your shoes and your hair, and you could have time to get a gift, right? Like everything was not rushed. Like everything made sense because there was time. Somehow, I think we really understand this concept when it comes to weddings. We also understand this concept when it comes to like buying a house and like moving like big things. People are like, yeah, that takes time. And then it's like, we're going to apply to law school. No, doesn't take time. Doesn't take time. Gonna do it right now. And I'm like, guys, wait. Same concept, right? Like, what would it look like for the law school application process to be 2 years and you took the first year to just focus on your LSAT score? Just like a whole year. Just, that's all I'm gonna do. And then once I've like checked that off, I'm gonna take the next year to focus on my essays and my application strategy and creating relationships with admission deans and directors and looking up scholarship opportunities to minimize my outside debt and finding pipeline and pathway programs that will help prepare me for law school. And I will actually look at programs and faculty and clinics, and I will feel very confident about my choices. Sounds very, very calm, very peaceful. This never happens. I've been doing law school admissions for like, almost 10 years at this point. Very, very rarely do I see this. But I feel like if we started to normalize this, we would really see a reduction of stress in this process. Because if I'm going to be honest, some of you guys need a year to study for the LSAT and just study for the LSAT. And some of you need a lot of time on your essays. People always like to underestimate how much time they need on their essays, but the number of essays in law school applications is also going up. Right? The number of optional essays and supplemental essays and scholarship essays and researching outside scholarships and fellowship programs. Like, there's actually a lot more that's in the process. And then some of you guys are really stressed in November because you've been trying to do both of these things at the same time. And truth be told, your LSAT score is not where you need it to be and your essays aren't where it needs to be and you're just not ready. And I'm going to be the person that says it. I'm going to say the quiet part out loud. Some of you need to take a year and you need to pause and you need to think about what you can feasibly accomplish well first. And for some of you, you need to spend more time on your LSAT prep. That's just it. Like, I'm not saying this to be shady or mean. At Barrier Breakers, we believe that you are more than your LSAT score, and you absolutely are. But also, some of you need to actually spend 6 months studying 3 hours a day in a dedicated, structured course. And I know courses cost money, and money does not grow on trees. But there are also a lot of programs and pipeline programs that, do offer reduced LSAT prep courses. There are a lot of, we do a lot with a lot of companies. There's LSAT Demon, there's 7Sage, Blueprint, LSAT Lab, and a good number of them have free plans for students that have LSAT fee waivers. So there's also that option. Every summer, for the last 2 summers, I think we've done a discounted course with 7Sage. And, we've been looking into doing one with other companies as well. We've had some every summer at our conference, Blueprint and 7Sage and Kaplan, they give away free LSAT prep courses. So there are a lot of ways to get some discounted LSAT prep. And I know that's the most expensive part of this process. And I'm like very sensitive to that. So y'all don't see, but I am out here in these LSAT prep streets hustling to get as many discounts and free courses and discounted tutors and all the things I can get for you guys, right? Like, it's so important to me that you guys have prep that you can afford. And it is possible to also get that kind of prep, but you have to give yourself time, right? There's time to find it and to research it and to reach out to Barrier Breakers and come to our conferences and get some of those giveaways. Like, we really try to, every year we give away at our conference free LSAT prep every single year. And even if you talk to those reps at our conference every single year, they can usually work something out. But especially if you're a fee waiver student, some of those companies just have discounted prep for you. Just there. Like, I know LSAT Lab and LSAT Lab and LSAT Demon both have like a kind of like a free or $1 or something very low cost plan if you have an LSAC fee waiver. So I'm just going to throw that out there again, right? And so some of you need to really spend 6 months, 3 hours a day, immersing yourself in LSAT and getting your score up to at least the 150s, ideally at least the 160s, depending on the schools that you're applying to. But I know some of you also need to take the time to investigate whether you need accommodations, right? If you were really good in college, like you had like a 3.5, 3.7 GPA in college, and your LSAT score is stuck in like the 140s, and you've not thought about accommodations, I'm not saying you need accommodations, but you've not thought about it, this is your invitation to think about it. And what does that look like, right? So do you have a history of maybe either test anxiety or running out of time on tests? Like think about your SAT and ACT journey, if you can remember that from high school, right? Did you run out of time on the SAT or the ACT? Have you ever gotten tested for ADHD or dyscalculia or dyslexia or any of those things? And maybe there's nothing and you don't need accommodations and you just need a new study plan, and that is also possible. But if you've not thought about it, if it's not been something that you've, investigated or talked to your primary care doctor about, then this is your invitation to do so, right? If there's like a really big discrepancy between kind of like where you generally perform academically and on standardized tests, sometimes we start to look at that. Especially we know that Black and brown students tend to be underdiagnosed, especially women of color. Women in general tend to be underdiagnosed. I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was 26, so we tend to be underdiagnosed. So you definitely want to think about that, right? And then that takes time. And then once you get the accommodations, you need time to practice with the accommodations. So all of that takes time, right? But I wouldn't just settle for, well, my score can't go above 144 and I don't feel like taking it again, so I'm just going to apply with my 144. It's just, it's worth it to try and to do what you can and to enroll in a different prep course or to get accommodations or to find a tutor in order to get your score higher, because you want to maximize your ability to not just get into law school, but I don't want any of you paying full freight for law school, right? Like that, we always talk about, again, making good long-term decisions. Law school is a financial investment in your future, and paying full freight for law school is usually not like the best way to go unless it's, like a Harvard or a Yale or Stanford or a top 20 school or a top 30 school that is going to have that job employment and median salary, right? That starting median salary is like 180, 210. Then like, okay, I mean, even then, I prefer you not pay full freight. But, if a school doesn't give need-based aid, or if a school doesn't give merit-based aid and they only give need-based aid and you don't qualify for need-based aid, so like you are kind of paying full freight, like, so that really only applies to like maybe less than 10 schools in the country, then sure. But for most schools, there's really no reason to be paying full freight. You should hopefully get some kind of merit scholarship or outside scholarship, and that's really important. And so I want you to have a score that sets you up for getting merit scholarships, for being able to reduce the financial cost of law school, because this is also what I tell students. 10 years from now, you are not going to be thinking about the extra year that you waited to apply to law school. Like, I get students that are like, but I'm already 27. And I'm like, okay, next year you'll be 28. It's fine. It's okay. It's really fine. That won't make a difference 10 years from now. It just won't. Like, that extra year just won't make a difference 10 years from now. However, 10 years from now, your student loans, like they might still be making a difference for you. Probably will, depending on how much you have. Like, your alumni community probably will still be making a difference for you. Your job prospects and how difficult or easy it was to get a job out of law school, and your ability to progress and your upward, like, yeah, that you'll be thinking about those things 10 years from now. You will not be thinking about the fact that you were 28 instead of 27 when you started law school. You just won't. And if starting law school at 28 means that you take out $150,000 less in debt, I think that makes sense, right? Like, Like, it's, if I asked you point blank, I said, you can start law school. You can start law school when you're 27 right now. Or you can start law school next year and it'll be $150,000 cheaper. I mean, are you really going to look at me and be like, no, it's okay. I would like to pay $150,000 more for the same education, please. I would just like a house worth of a student loan debt because I don't want to wait one more year. I mean, listen, if you're telling me that, like if you're like dead ass, I actually want the debt, Sydney, I just want to go right now, then okay. I mean, listen, I'm just here. But like, I just want you to think about it. That's all I'm saying. So like I said, some of you, your LSAT journey and where you are in your LSAT journey, especially if you might have to overcome like your GPA journey, might mean that it's worth it for you to wait and see what we can do to help, get your score where it needs to be. For some of you, your essays aren't ready. They're not ready. And I know y'all all think that you're like Shakespeare, like Emily Dickinson, and y'all could just like, it's like, I feel like people are like, I'm just going to write it next weekend and it'll be done, right? Like I've been doing this for 10 years and like no one's ever just been like, here are my perfect essays, right? It takes time. It takes a few drafts, whether you have someone looking over it, whether we're looking over it, like it takes a few drafts. And then like sometimes people will be like, I want to apply to law school Friday. Can I send you my first draft on Wednesday? And then I'm like, well, I'm confused, right? You want to send me a draft. Do you want to send me a draft? You obviously want me to give you feedback. Maybe. I think people sometimes want to send in a draft, whether it's to us or to someone else, and then they just want someone to be like, this is perfect, go submit. But then what ends up happening is I like send it back and I'm like, no, you have to fix all these things. And they're like, wait, I have to fix all these things? I'm like, yeah, you have to fix all these things. Like, it's not strong. They're like, but I wanted to submit Friday. I'm like, okay, well, you gave me this essay Wednesday and you have to fix all these things. Like, it's up to you. You can submit your essay as it is. It's going to be rushed and kind of half-assed, or you can fix all the things and you're not going to submit on Friday, but you're going to submit a strong essay. And like, spoiler alert, when you send it back to me, I might give it back to you again, right? Like, we might have to go through multiple rounds because that's how essay editing and the writing process work, right? It takes time. The essay writing process is an iterative, time-based process, and you have multiple essays. So you have multiple iterations and drafts for your personal statement and your optional statements and your scholarship essays. And there are so many different prompts, as so many of you know, now that process, it actually takes some time. And if that process taking time now means that you're applying in February because it's taking you time, because some of you guys have to be honest. Some of you guys, I give you a draft back. Someone gives you a draft back. And life happens. And listen, I am a life's for me. Right? Like you had a long week at work, your kids needed things, soccer practice, you had trick or treat and the, Christmas plays and all the things, and parents came into town and you're flying halfway across the country for Thanksgiving, and now you've got to do a toy drive, and before you know it, you have had my feedback for 3 weeks. I'm just saying. The process takes time, right? Because we still have to go back and forth with drafts. And so, if this process means, because of all the other things that you have going on in your life, that you really need more time to write good essays, that you really need more time for the actual application materials, and it's now February, I would still say that perhaps we should think about what your application will look like if you can instead hit submit in September of next year. And again, what are those scholarships going to look like? I know this is like advice that nobody wants. Like, I'm like, this is a video of me telling you things you don't want to hear. You're like, Sydney, bring back the happy videos. I liked the happy videos. This is a downer video. This is just me being very real with you, right? Because I want you to win. I want you to win. I want you to get into law school. I want you to get scholarship money. And some of you are making decisions right now that are not in the favor of you getting scholarship money. They're just not. And so this brings me to my third question, my third introspective question for you. Some of you aren't ready because your resumes aren't ready. I'm going to say more quiet parts out loud. Some of you want to go into areas of law that you have never done any volunteering, you have never done any work experience, you've not done any clubs or projects, you have nothing on your resume remotely related to the area of law that you want to practice. And this is not me saying you need to work at a law firm or do a law-related job. But some of you are like, I'm super passionate about animal law, and there ain't not one thing. You have not even stepped into an animal shelter. You haven't even looked at, you don't even own a pet. Okay? Like, nothing. Literally nothing. And then you're like, what do I write on my personal statement, Sydney? And I'm like, I don't have anything, right? You actually need to take this year and go volunteer at an animal shelter and maybe find an animal rights organization that you can volunteer. And maybe if you've had a gap in employment, you need to get a job, right? And you need to get an employer letter of recommendation. And you need to do things to actually make your law school application strong, like the application, like your portfolio strong, right? And that's worth it, because you don't have the things to put in your personal statement to make your personal statement strong and convincing for the area of law that you say you want to practice in, because you've not done anything in that area of law. There's like, some of you are interested in child welfare and you've never babysat. Like, not even babysitting, right? And so, like, go babysit. Go do something that shows me that this actually is something that, you know, you're convincing me that I need to let you into my law school. You are so passionate about this area, and yet you're so passionate about it that you have not spent any time doing anything related to this issue. It's confusing to me. You know, I've had students where I've told them, hey, I need you to get a volunteer opportunity in this. I need you to do that. And it's strengthened their application. It's made a whole host of a difference, right? And some of you need time to do that. You need time to go get a job or volunteer or do a community service project, join a club, a different club if you're still at school and you have opportunities to do that, right? To strengthen your application so that when you apply, it makes sense, right? There are so many ways to strengthen your law school applications, and law school isn't going anywhere. So we also do college counseling here at Barrier Breakers. And, you know, college counseling is different because most students, they go to college after high school, right? And that's when they would like to go, right? We don't have questions about, do you want to take 5 years off? Or like, no, I mean, most high schoolers go to college, right? And so we kind of get to this point where it's like 11th grade and it's like 12th grade. And it's like, well, we're here now, right? The classes you've taken, the extracurricular activities you've done, like whatever you've done or not done, this is what we're applying with, right? Because college is right now. Law school is not that, right? Law school's not going anywhere. You control the timeline. You control like your test prep timeline. You control your essay timeline. You control your volunteer and work history timeline. You control all of that. And I think so many times in this law school application process, we act like we have no control over the timing. We act like it's just like, oh my gosh, this is happening to me. And it's like, no, you can choose. You can hit pause. You can decide, I am going to apply to law school when I'm ready. I'm going to take my time and get good and ready. I'm going to stay in this job and save my money, right? And build up savings before I go to law school. Like, I am going to be ready and put my best foot forward, because law school is an investment in my career and in my future. I'm going to leave you guys with my favorite story. It's my favorite story from one of our very early clients, right? So I had a student, and he went to a state school for undergrad, and some of you have probably heard this story before. And he had a good GPA, and his LSAT score, I think the first time around was like maybe low 150s. And he applied, which I actually wouldn't have recommended to do in this situation, because, and I'll explain to you, right? So like, I'm always a fan of like actually like applying when you're ready. But so anyways, he just applied just to see, which I don't like. So he just applied just to see. And he didn't really get anywhere that he wanted to go. Well, where he wanted to go. Like, he was really looking at the top 14 schools. And so I was like, okay. So he was like, I'm going to take some more time to study. And I was like, okay. So this is year 2, application cycle 2. I don't remember what his LSAT score was. Either high 150s or low 160s. But anyways, he got into Georgetown. And I was like, amazing. Like, I'm out here doing a praise dance. I'm like, going to Georgetown, going to Georgetown. Like, I'm like so excited, right? And he's like, Sydney, I'm not going. And I'm like, what do you mean? I did the praise dance. What do you mean? He's like, I really want to go to Harvard Law School. And I was like, but we can't guarantee that at all. And Georgetown's an amazing school, so please go. And he was like, no. He's like, I'm not in a rush. I'll wait. Again, this is not a story to like, don't do this. I'm just letting you know how this worked out for the student. Because he was not in a rush. He took another year to study for the LSAT. He got his score now in the 170. So like he's been on this LSAT journey for like 3 years or whatever. But the LSAT is eventually, over time, I've been told, learnable. I took the LSAT one time, so I can't really speak to that, and I am not an LSAT prep tutor, but I've been told it's learnable. Anyway, so he took it that third year, and he got in the 170s. And we, you know, every time you reapply, you have to change your essays. So we changed his essays again, right? Which is why I don't recommend just applying to apply, because it's like so much work to write the essays the first time. Then you have to like do them again the second time. But we did. We changed his essays again. And he graduated from Harvard Law School a couple years ago. For me, his story is powerful because he was not in a rush. He was chilling. He was like, listen, I know that I can get to where I want to go, and it is worth the wait for me. And I have had so many Barrier Breaker students who, you know, we have this conversation. I have this conversation with lots of students. Like, you know, we decide to wait, right? Like they were going to rush. And then we decide to wait. Like I have a student who is a 2L at Stanford right now. He would not have gotten into Stanford his first time. He, you know, and he just like didn't have time to study for the LSAT, not really. And I was like, listen, your essays are done. They're great. Don't submit. Take an extra year, study for the LSAT. He took an extra year, got like, I think 172 or 173, 2L at Stanford now. Right. And he was like, Sydney, you telling me to wait was like the best decision. I mean, I have so many, like tens and tens and tens of these stories of students who realize that their law school goals are worth the wait, and they invest in themselves. You know, we work on their essays, but they then, you know, and we work on the essays in a way that is not stressful. And then they take the LSAT, or they do their LSAT and we come back and we do their essays once their LSAT score is completely done, right? But they took the extra time to wait, and it always works out in their favor. Scholarship monies, higher acceptances, all of those things. So I'm not one of those people who are like, you can only apply to law school if you have a 170. Like I didn't even have a 170, right? Most of our students don't. And I'm not even saying you can only apply to law school if you have a 160. Like that's not what I'm saying at all. Or 150. Like I'm not talking about a specific score, but what I am saying is you are worth the wait. If you have studied hard, and I know some students who have studied hard for years and years and years, and a 150 or, you know, a lower score, like that is the highest it's going to go. And they are done. And I respect that. And I support them in that, right? Because they didn't rush the process. Like this is just kind of where their process ended. And there are law schools that you can get into with those scores, right? And we find good fits, and it's a happy situation. I am very much not saying there are only certain LSAT scores that I am supporting. What I am saying is I don't support rushing. So if you are honest with yourself and you absolutely feel like the score that you have is the byproduct of you putting in the time and the investment and the worth, and you looked at accommodations and tutoring and courses and all of those things, and like you did not rush your LSAT process, you gave it 110%, and this is your score and you feel good with it, then great. But if you can't say that, if like you look yourself in the mirror and you go, I kind of rushed that, didn't really, could have probably put more into that, didn't really take advantage of the course, I didn't really do the homework, life kind of got in the way, didn't study as much as I wanted to, it is worth the wait. to make sure that when you apply to law school, you leave it all on the table. When you guys hit submit, I want you guys to feel like there is nothing more I could have done with that LSAT exam. That is the best of me. And those essays, the best of me. There is like from my soul, and also I had them reviewed with enough time. The writing, chef's kiss, right? And my resume, the work experience, the way I tied together everything towards the development of my passion in the law, a masterpiece. And then what happens? Like, God's going to open the doors that need to be open, right? So then you just give it to God and you feel good about it. I feel good about it, right? That's just like, I feel good about it. You feel good about it. I feel good about it. But if any one of those three things, you're looking at them and you're like, dang, I'm kind of cutting corners here. I'm kind of rushing. I'm just doing this because it's almost December and I just need to hit submit on something. That's when I would suggest maybe taking a pause, thinking about it, and seeing if it's not worth the wait to hit submit next September. Okay, this was a heavy episode, so let me know what questions you guys have. Let me know in the comments. We are still here to help you with your application, so whether you need a la carte essay editing, we have that. We also have smaller packages with our advisors. And if you guys do decide, I'm going to give you a little present, right? Because I kind of brought you down a little bit. If you decide, you know what, Sydney, after this video, I realized that my law school applications are worth the wait, that I am going to wait, then I am going to give you a special present. We are doing 25% off our standard and advanced packages for next application cycle for the Black Friday, Cyber Monday weekend. So you can get that code right below, 25 for 2025. We want to help you on your application journey. If you have an LSAC fee waiver, our package is already 75% off. So you can just go collect your 75% off, like right on our website. You literally can just sign up on our website. But you can put this code in that I put below in the links below and in the show notes on the podcast, so you can start your application journey off right for 2025. Let me know what questions you have. I love you guys. I am always praying for you and praying for your applications. Make sure that you like and subscribe, rate and follow, share this video with a friend. And if you have questions, you can also always submit them to bit.ly/breakintolawschool. We cannot wait to answer your questions, and we will talk to you very soon.